Hello everyone, I'm Chef Carpenter, and today we're going to make one of our dessert sauces. We're going to make caramel sauce. It's a very simple recipe. It should be quick for us to make today, but we'll want to be careful of some things. Caramel, the temperature range is between 320 and 340 degrees Fahrenheit. So we want to take extra care of working around that hot sugar. And it tends to continue cooking very rapidly, so we'll want to make sure that we stop that cooking process quickly. So very simple for the equipment. We have our induction burner, we have an induction pot, we have a brush with clean water in case we have crystals on the side of the pot. We'll wash them down with that brush, a silicone spatula, and then a bowl to add our remaining ingredients after we make the caramel. So here are our ingredients right here. We've got 8 ounces of granulated sugar, 2 ounces of water, 1 ounce of corn syrup, a pinch of salt, 5.5 ounces of heavy cream, and 1 1/4 ounces of butter. So let's go ahead and get started here. One thing, make sure you add your ingredients to the pot whenever making a sugar syrup, before you turn it on. Otherwise, you heat the pot up, you throw the water in, and a lot of it will evaporate right away, and your results just won't turn out well. I added the water in the pot, and now we're going to follow that with the sugar. I'm being very careful not to get the sugar on the sides of the pot. So we're just going to move it around a little bit and moisten that sugar up. I don't want to leave a bunch of dry sugar sitting on the bottom of the pot. If we do, it'll tend to caramelize way too quickly. So now I'm going to turn this on. We mentioned that the temperature of caramel is between 320 and 340 degrees. So I have the pot set at 370 degrees. So we should easily get to the desired temperature. So the next ingredient we have, we're going to add, as this is warming up right here, I want to dilute it a little bit, then we're going to add the corn syrup. If you have a microwave oven close by, you could put it in for 15 seconds, it'll come to a boil, and add it in, and you'll get a lot more of it out of the container, but I'll scrape it out today with my spatula. But remember, preheating it is always a good idea. Okay, so we have the corn syrup in there. I want you to be very careful. That corn syrup will tend to also color very quickly, so we'll just make sure we get that dissolved in with the sugar and water. Okay. So now, whenever we cook a sugar syrup, one of the ways that you can cause crystallization is by continuing to stir it. So we want to let it cook undisturbed. But first we're going to take a look in the pot, and we want to see if there's any crystals of sugar on the sides of the pot, because those will cause other crystals to grow. So we'll take a quick look in here, and I see a spot that I want to just go ahead and wash down. I just take my pastry brush, and this one is used just for sugar. It's a high temp one, and it's clean. We don't want to use one that we've used to brush flour off or have fat, residue or any kind of food on. So try to always have one just for your sugar work. So we'll take a look at it now. It's at a rapid boil. I have a little bit of salt here. Really can be added at any time, but just to make sure it fully dissolves, I'm just going to add it right in. You should have no problems adding salt into a sugar syrup. No problems with crystallization. So we have everything in there that is the syrup base. And now what else we have left is the cream and the butter. So this is going to cook very rapidly here. Okay, so our sugar is cooking here, and we're probably right around the hard crack stage. And you'll see now it's going to change color rapidly. And it's very important that your ingredients are ready, because I'm going to use the heavy cream to shock that sugar and stop that cooking process. I also have an ice bath that I'm going to use to cool down the sauce. If you're uncomfortable and you felt you'd like to just touch it in the ice bath to slow it down, feel free to do that. But I'm going to go ahead and just stop the process with the cream. Now we want to get a nice dark amber color, because when you add the cream and the butter to it, it's going to lighten the color of this caramel sauce quite a bit. So we're going to go ahead and take a look here in the pot. It's going to start coloring very, very rapidly. So we're going to watch for it, and you can also smell it as it begins to caramelize. And I'm going to just move this over a little bit and make sure that you can see the color change here. And again, I have my heavy cream, and I have my soft butter that we're going to whisk in at the end. So it's just starting to get a little bit of golden color. And even though we have a really good induction burner, it doesn't always color evenly. So I might just move the pot around because I have a bit of a hot spot there. And I don't know if you can see that color, but we're getting a nice golden color right there. So I turn the pot around, see if we can get even. I may have to move it a little bit. You just don't want to move it too much. Too much stirring could cause crystallization. So if it gets a little dark in one spot, I'll blend it a little bit. So we're watching it, and right here, it's definitely a hot spot. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of movement. Okay, and now if you can see that, a little bit of smoke is coming off. It's starting to color. We need to get a little bit more color than this, otherwise you'll have a very, very pale caramel sauce. So we're watching that color right there, and remember, this will continue to cook. So I'm going to shut the pot off. We've got so the induction burner is going to start to cool down a little bit, and it's time. It's going to go very rapidly. So if you can see that color, we've got a nice dark amber color. Now we're going to go ahead and stop this cooking process. We're going to put a little bit of cream in, and you'll see that's very, very hot. That's why I'm using a long-handled silicone spatula here, so that it doesn't burn you. Okay, once that's blended in, I'll add a little bit more. Just because that steam had stopped in the beginning, that doesn't mean it's cooled down yet. So be very, very careful. If you add it too rapidly, you'll get hard bits of caramel in there, and it's very difficult to get that to dissolve. So take your time here. We've already stopped the cooking process. Okay, so it has cooled quite a bit now. Make sure that you scrape every bit of the bottom. We've got no lumps in there. I'm going to go ahead and add the remainder of the cream. Okay, now that all the cream is in there, I'm going to get it out of this pot to help cool it further. Okay, it's still a little bit hot yet, so we may want to give it a few minutes to cool, so we can just stir it, or in order to speed up this process, I'm going to just take a little bit of heat out. So the reason I want to do that is so that when I add the butter is, it's actually an emulsion. There's fat and there's water or moisture in here, and we don't want to lose that, because that'll give it a nice mouthfeel and a creamy texture. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of the butter in there, and we'll go ahead and whisk that in. If you chill it too much, that butter won't melt in there, so you want to be careful not to shock it too long. So you can see that butter's just melting in there slowly. Okay, and if it gets a little too cool, you can always soften the butter and whisk it in hard. It'll work in there, or you'd have to warm it up slightly, which we don't want to do that. So just be careful with it. You know, the temperature right now is maybe 110 degrees, so it should emulsify nicely. So I have all the butter is in there now, and I'm going to cool this. I'm going to cool it for the video so that you can see the process as it cools. But it would be best, you could cool it just a very short time on the ice and then let it cool to room temperature on its own. Otherwise you tend to put a lot of air in it. Sometimes you'll get the fat to solidify, and you know, maybe in little bits, and you would get, it wouldn't be such a nice mouthfeel. So you want to be very, very careful with this, not to chill it too rapidly. Now this caramel, we have several uses for this. We can use this as a truffle filling. We can use this as a sauce on a plate. And I've also used it for fillings in cakes or torts. But it is best to let this set in the refrigerator overnight before using it. So you can see it's thickened quite a bit because of the ice. Now this color is much darker than it'll be tomorrow. It'll lighten a little bit. And that's it. Now I just want to let this set at room temperature until it's at least room temperature before using. All right, thank you very much.